Arif and Mira had lived in the same wooden house for 7 years. It stood near the edge of a quiet forest, where the sun filtered through tall pines and the mornings began with birdsong. Their life, from the outside, looked peaceful, almost poetic. No loud arguments, no chaos, just the rhythm of routine and silence. Every morning, Arif brewed coffee, placed a cup near Mira's easel, and returned to his study, without a word. She nodded. That was enough. Their conversations had become transactional, brief, more about weather than emotions. Arif wrote about nature. His books sold decently, and he spent hours observing birds, clouds, trees. He loved the solitude, or maybe he had just adjusted to it. Mira painted landscapes, mostly. Her colors were softer now, less bold than when they first moved in. There was love once, still present in photographs and folded letters in a drawer, but it no longer lived in their gestures. Touch had become rare. Her fingers often brushed against paint more than his skin. One afternoon, while waiting for a package in town, Mira bumped into someone she hadn't seen in years. Rishi. He looked the same, just a little more worn around the eyes. College friend, briefly a crush, but never more. They talked, laughed lightly. She told him about the woods, her art, the silence. He listened, really listened. He said she still had the same smile, which caught her off guard. Before leaving, he asked if she still painted skies. She didn't answer, just smiled and walked away. That night, she didn't tell Arif. Not because she had something to hide, but because there was nothing to share. Or maybe she didn't want to hear silence in response. The next few days passed like usual. She painted, Arif wrote. They ate dinner at the same table, spoke only about groceries and how winter might come early. But Mira found herself checking her phone more often. She remembered Rishi's voice, the ease in their conversation. She began to feel a weight, not heavy, but enough to notice. Arif didn't ask questions. He never had. He believed in giving space, or perhaps he was afraid of what filled it. Mira watched him from across the porch as he wrote. His face was calm, eyes focused. She wondered if he ever noticed how quiet their house had become. Days later, she opened a drawer and found an old postcard Rishi had given her during college. She hadn't remembered keeping it. On the back, a quote. "Not all those who wander are lost." She held it a while, then put it back without reason. The forest around them stayed green, alive. Birds chirped, winds shifted. Nature changed with time. So did people. Some quietly, some with noise. But always something moved, even when nothing seemed to. The messages started innocently. A meme, a joke, a comment on a painting Mira posted. Rishi had a way of making conversation feel effortless. He remembered details from college, things Mira had long forgotten. She found herself smiling at her phone more often, even anticipating his replies. It felt harmless, familiar, even comforting. But she didn't tell Arif. She told herself there was no need. It wasn't like that. But something shifted. She started caring more about how she looked when leaving the house. She wore perfume again, styled her hair, even for quick grocery runs. Rishi noticed. He complimented her openly. She deflected at first, then thanked him. Arif said nothing, still offered his quiet routines, but never looked closely. Their home remained the same, but Mira's inner world was louder now. She started painting in bolder colors again, like she used to. One afternoon, Rishi sent her a photo of an old sketch she once gave him. She had forgotten about it. He hadn't. That night, she couldn't sleep. Rishi suggested meeting up properly, not just bumping into each other. She hesitated. She didn't say no. Instead, she said, "Maybe next week." Her hands shook as she typed it. Arif was in the next room, typing away unaware. Or pretending to be. She wondered if he even noticed the scent of her new perfume, the longer walks she took alone. She began to feel divided. Part of her was still loyal to the life she had built, the quiet, the safety. But another part craved what Rishi gave her, attention without effort, excitement without weight. Arif hadn't touched her face in months. Rishi made her feel seen with a single message. One evening, Rishi texted, "You were always more beautiful than you realized." She stared at it for minutes before replying, "You always said the right things." He responded, "Not always. Just the things I meant." Arv noticed her phone lighting up more than usual. He never asked. Mira caught him looking at her once, but when she turned, he looked away. That moment stayed with her. Guilt came and went in waves. She hadn't done anything wrong. Not yet. But she also hadn't been honest, with Arv or with herself. She started journaling again, quietly, in the early hours. Her entries were scattered, unfinished. Half-thoughts. Emotions she couldn't name. One morning, Rishi sent her a voice note. He was sitting by a lake, thinking of her. The sound of birds in the background. It made her cry, quietly, alone in the bathroom. Not because of love. Because of what it awakened. Later that day, she avoided looking at Arav during dinner. He ate slowly, thoughtfully, and asked how her painting was going. She nodded, said fine, and kept her eyes on the plate. Her mind was elsewhere, on another voice, another place. She didn't know what was happening, only that something already had. They met again, this time intentionally. She told Arav she was going to the market. Rishi picked her up halfway down the road. The car ride was quiet at first. Then he played music she used to like. She smiled without thinking. He noticed. They didn't talk about their spouses. They didn't talk about the past. Only the present existed, and it was warm, careless, and dangerously simple. He parked near an overlook, somewhere quiet. They stepped out, looked at the hills, the sky turning gray. She mentioned how beautiful the view was. He replied without looking at it, said he was glad she came. When he reached for her hand, she didn't pull away. The first kiss was hesitant. The second wasn't. There was no plan, no intention, just an impulse she didn't resist. She let herself go, just for that moment. Back home, her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She washed them 3 times. Arav was reading on the porch, calm as ever. She walked past him. He looked up briefly. Said nothing. Her mind replayed the afternoon in loops. His touch, the rain starting, the silence after. She told herself it was a mistake. But another part of her didn't regret it. She felt guilt and relief, twisted together. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her chest felt heavy. She opened her journal, started to write, then stopped. There were no words that made it feel better. Rishi messaged her. "Are you okay?" She didn't respond. Turned her phone face down. Arav came into the room, glanced at her, then walked out again. In the following days, everything around her felt too quiet. She avoided the mirror. Couldn't meet Arav's eyes. She painted a lot. Fast, messy strokes. Bold reds and blacks. Her studio smelled of turpentine and something broken. She stayed out there for hours. Arav brought her tea once. Left it at the door. She found herself hating the quiet between her and Arav, but couldn't stand the noise inside her. She stopped replying to Rishi, but didn't block him. His messages stayed unread. Each one a reminder, a possibility. Her heart raced every time the screen lit up, but her finger hovered, never opened them. One morning, while out walking, she saw a bird trapped in plastic near the river. It flapped violently, desperate. She freed it with trembling hands. It flew away without hesitation. She cried right there, knees in the mud, because it felt like something had been said without words. Back at home, Arav asked if she was okay. She nodded, gave a soft, just tired. He didn't press, but he watched her longer this time, like he was trying to understand something without asking. Later that night, she stared at the ceiling while Arav lay beside her, both of them facing opposite directions. The distance had grown into something real. And now it was no longer just emotional. Something had happened. And no matter how quiet the house remained, it would echo between them. Mira didn't answer Rishi's last few messages. They sat unread, piling quietly beneath old conversations. She had nothing left to say, and yet, too much to explain. Guilt lingered like smoke, never choking, just always present. She stopped going into town. She stopped painting for days. The silence at home was deeper now, heavier, not just emotional but moral. She moved slower, as if hoping time itself would undo what had been done. Arav noticed. He always noticed. But he never asked directly. He cooked dinner more often now, small gestures. Once, he left a book on her chair with a note. "Thought you'd like this." She read the first page, then closed it. That night, he stood by the window longer than usual. Finally, he asked, "Are you happy, Mira?" Her throat closed. She couldn't lie, but she wasn't ready for the truth either. She looked away, whispered, "I don't know." He nodded once, said nothing else, walked outside. Days passed. They moved through the house like quiet guests. She avoided his eyes. He gave her space. They slept in the same room, but it felt like different worlds. No more accidental touches. No casual words. Only the occasional glance that said more than conversation ever could. They had reached the kind of silence that speaks volumes. One evening, she sat by the window and wrote a letter she never intended to send. It started with, "I don't know why I let it happen," and ended with, "I miss who we were." She folded it, placed it in a drawer, then burned her old journals the next day. Watching the pages curl felt both freeing and cruel. Rishi never reached out again. Maybe he sensed the change. Maybe he didn't care anymore. Mira didn't check. She had no interest in reopening that door. It hadn't given her what she was looking for. It had only shown her how lost she already was. Autumn arrived. The leaves outside turned amber and fell in slow spirals. The house grew colder. Arav began working later into the night. Mira returned to her studio but painted less frequently. When she did, her colors were different, softer, sadder, but clearer. One painting showed two trees standing close but leaning in opposite directions. She titled it "Still Here." Neither of them spoke about what had passed. There was no confrontation, no blame. Just the quiet acceptance of what couldn't be undone. They stayed in the same house, shared the same kitchen, but not the same intimacy. It wasn't punishment. It was distance made visible. She thought often about what would have happened if she had spoken sooner, or if Arav had held her closer when she began to drift. But thoughts don't change reality. Regret doesn't erase decisions. Months later, they sat on the porch, not talking, just watching the wind move through trees. No touch, no words. But still, there they were, together somehow. Maybe not as lovers. Maybe just as two people who once were, and still chose not to leave.